Hello and welcome to another episode of Ask the Wizard After Dark. I'm your host, Russ Leteau, aka The Wizard. Hello, this is another episode of Ask the Wizard After Dark. I'm your host, Russ Leteau, aka The Wizard. It's July 19th. I often ask myself the question that I posed in the description for this show. It's often when I'm asked. Matter of fact, I was asked probably within the past half hour. And it's such a powerful question, and it's one that I'm not sure whether there's one simple answer. I know for myself, the topic of this episode is something that is perplexed me at times, frustrated me at times, caused me to feel immensely grateful at times. It's really a conundrum of dichotomies. There's some fancy words. It's a most interesting time. And as I mentioned in the description of this show, why is it that spiritual growth seems to involve so much, I'll add that descriptor, so much pain? And it seems like the discomfort and the pain intensifies just before a breakthrough. And I've experienced it time and time again. I know many of you have. And it's amazing how it seems like just when it feels like we can't take another step, and we're almost, and maybe we've slipped back and forth across that line of carrying on and quitting, or holding the faith and giving up, or pick your words. But it seems like when we just get to that breaking point almost, and then the breakthrough happens. And I know I've often thought this myself, and you listen to some teachers and authors, and at least from my observation, many of them say, well, if you do this, whatever this is, and if you follow this process, or if you do this technique or whatever, then it'll just all magically happen. Well, I suppose in a theoretical world, that's 100% true. But as I know, and I'm sure many of you do, we don't live in a theoretical world. And so the application of it tends to be a bit different. And I think, based on my observations over the past 13 years and full-time 8 years, I'm not sure if we're looking for, I don't want to say true because that implies the rest is false. If we're looking for those deep, powerful, personal changes, and this is what I find is, as it relates to spiritual growth and manifesting, is that if there's a particular area that as we grow and change and evolve, there doesn't seem to be any pain, you see, that's probably an area that we don't need to grow and expand and evolve in. You see, so if it happens to be an area that it's not a time in our life experience where we need to expand past that, then sure, growth happens easily. But you see, it's not really growth because we've already we've broke through that threshold. So now we're just doing the same thing over and over, and it's great. That's excellent. But the reason it feels effortless is we've done all the work to break through that threshold. And so I find if you're looking for fundamental, powerful, profound change, you're going to walk through pain to get to it. And there's a variety of reasons for that. And I definitely don't have all the answers on this one, and I'll probably come up with more reasons and thoughts on it as time goes on. I think one of the reasons, I think it's designed to be that way. And again, there's many reasons why we'll feel these painful times, and especially just before a breakthrough. I think the first thing to remember is, while pain is damn uncomfortable, it's not inherently bad. And I think that's an important thing to remember, is that pain is part of the process of growth. I've been teaching the last little while on what's commonly known as the dark night of the soul. I've renamed it to the emerging or the emergence process, because that's what's happening. And during that time, there's going to be pain. I think what makes it painful is our approach to it. And when you think about it, really, there's so many things just in life that involve pain. When I was working out at the gym real steady, you always knew when you had a good shoulder day, when you really worked your shoulders out well, when at the end of the workout, you couldn't take your t-shirt off because you couldn't get your arms to raise above your head. Or on a leg day, the next day, every step, it's like your muscles were just screaming at you. But every step, it was like, ouch, yes, ouch, yes, ouch, yes. And so, yes, it was painful, but it was an indicator of growth. And because of that, we felt pain, but it wasn't nearly as painful. And I know it sounds like that's just a play on words, but I think it's an important one. You see, resisting the pain often prevents us from going through it to the glory that's waiting for us on the other side. And going through the pain is part of the process of emerging. But at least I've found we can go through that process a lot less painful than it needs to be. And I think that's an important difference. Pain is part of growth, but how we understand and manage our way through it makes that experience a lot less painful. And so I think the first thing to do is to not vilify it. Okay, it is what it is, right? It's part of the process. We don't have to like it. But if you're looking for those powerful, world-changing, at least for you, breakthroughs, it's probably going to entail it, and it's probably going to peak just before the breakthrough happens. And so, okay, it is what it is. Let's figure out how to move through it as efficiently as possible. And I think that's for me what makes it less painful, is if we can move through it as efficiently as possible, and if we can do our best to not prolong it, because when we prolong it, that's what makes it more painful. At least that's what I've found. And so for me, that's the first thing. I don't have to like it, but I understand that it plays a role. And in a way, when it hits that peak, and we've all had that experience, that's one of my best indicators that everything's about to change. And for me, that really changes. It makes the experience a lot less painful, because yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, there's pain, but it's our indicator, and often our best indicator, that we're right on the cusp of everything changing. I think that's what's so important to remember. And for me, what I do, and I think this is where you pull out every tool you have in your toolbox to manage your way through it. One of the things that I do, I guess you could call it an affirmation, is I surrender. Right? And I will actually say, I surrender to the process. And I find that for me is probably one of the tools I use the most, because what I find is when we get to that spot, I think pretty much all the work is done. All our work is done anyway. And there's really not much we have to do other than do our very best to surrender to the process, and it will carry us through the pain to the glory that's on the other side of it. And I think for me, what makes it more painful is when I try to push through rather than just surrendering to the process and allowing it to carry me through. For me, I find that's very, very effective, right? It's just surrender to the process, resist the urge to try and analyze it, ask the question why, what can I do to hurry this up, right? Just for me, as I surrender to the process and that creative flow, you've often heard me talk about creative flow, will carry us through to the glory on the other side. And from one who's made this trip, I've lost track how many times. What's so merciful about this, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, is you see the pain. Well, it's damn uncomfortable. There are strategies we can use to make it less painful. And the beauty of it is when we break through to that glory on the other side, the pain disappears. It's gone. In a moment, it is gone. And the glory is just so almost intoxicating. And so you see, for me, is there pain involved in growth? Yeah. There's things we can do to make it less painful. I shared one of my tips. And it, at the very least, is a process, an emergence process that we move through to the glory on the other side. Now, why am I so appreciative of that? Because you don't have to look very far to find people who experience pain in a very painful fashion every single day. And for them, it's not a process. It's a destination. You see, for them, the pain serves no purpose other than to remind them that they're stuck in this painful situation or environment. You see, we all experience pain. Really, the power comes in whether we decide to have that pain be a process that leaves. We enter it, we experience, and then it leaves. And then we experience the glory on the other side. So at least it serves a purpose. So many people, there's no purpose. It's just the same painful experience over and over and over again. And for me, yeah, I don't like it. Believe me, I don't like it. But I have learned to value it. And not perfect by any stretch, but I'm getting better. And when it gets to that spot, just it's like letting go of the wheel, surrendering to the process, and the creative flow will carry me through to the glory on the other side. And that's what it's all about. And this is one of the things I've found, no matter how long that emergence process was for you and is for us, as soon as you hit that glory on the other side, it really doesn't matter whether it was 10 minutes, 10 days, or 10 months. When you get to that glory on the other side, it's always, always worth it. And it evaporates in a moment. And you are marinated in the glory of all, and the rewards of all your work. And that's what matters, to me anyway. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for your comments. That's what makes this show so valuable for all of us. This has been another episode of Ask the Wizard After Dark. I'm your host, Russ Latow, a.k.a. The Wizard.